Hey guys, welcome back to The Drip, and today is episode 10 of The Drip. We have made it to double digits.
Yeah.
How about that?
What?
Yeah.
So, how prominent.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Anyways.
Today, we are addressing what has been going on with the Florida legislature and the company, otherwise known as Disney, Walt Disney. There is a House bill in Florida that was passed, the 1557 law. You guys may have heard about it, otherwise known as the Don't Say Gay bill. It basically, do you want to kind of fill in?
Yeah.
If people don't know what's going on?
Yeah, if you don't know what that legislative bill was, or kind of why we decided to tackle this, is so HB 1557 came out and was passed in the Florida legislation that in schools, I'll actually just read you really the exact quote that highlights what the bill is, and it says, classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through third grade or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for state standards. So that's really, to sum up what the bill is that in school systems, either the teachers or somebody that they bring in third party are not allowed to talk about sexual identity to those younger students. And now after this Florida bill passed, Disney kind of ramped up. They had some employees that walked out on them. And because of that, as a response, they ramped up and have told the Florida legislative team that they are going to step in and do anything in their power to try to overturn this bill. So I figured let's talk about that today.
Yeah.
We've kind of had some response of how do Christians handle this in general. Huge, massive company like Disney. I don't know if you do, but for instance, I support Disney. I have a Disney Plus account. So do we keep it? Do we get rid of it? This is kind of the question that's been posed to us over and over. So how do we respond in a standard biblical way, and then what do we also do as far as support or not support of those companies?
Yeah, great. Cool. So without further ado...
Yeah. I'm Anthony Patton.
And I'm Jonathan Duncan, and this is The Drip. I was like holding my hand out, smiling.
I should do that.
Kind of feel like I'm at Walt Disney World already.
Do you just go in Diamond? What's that Disney song? Why can't I think of any?
Are you thinking of The Lion King?
There it is. What is it?
La
Sueña. That's awful. Anyways.
Simba. I have come to boycott you, Simba. I gotta go.
What is that, like that monkey with the staff? What's his name? Rafiki.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been too long since I watched that.
I'm pretty sure me and my siblings pretend like we were Rafiki. We had this stick that my dad used to have, and we were, I don't know.
He's like,
just things you do when you're a kid and watching The Lion King.
Hey, squash banana.
Yeah.
For some reason I remember squash banana.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways, back to the content.
Diving right in.
Yeah.
So, Disney basically wants to do anything they can to repeal this bill. And they've already vowed to donate $5 million to organizations that work to protect LGBTQ plus rights, and then have also begun speaking to employees in town hall meetings about how it can better serve this community. So like Anthony said, what is our Christian response to this? And, you start thinking about it. If you guys remember back in the late 90s when the SBC actually vowed an 8-year boycott for or against Disney, but we were talking, and there's so many other companies too that support things that aren't necessarily Judeo-Christian values. So how far would you go as a Christian in supporting or different levels of that, or what's the best response?
We like to be line drawers, right? Did I say that? Drawers?
Drawers?
Why can't I say that right? Line drawers?
Drawers?
We like to draw lines, okay? We like to draw lines in events and say, okay, we're going to go up to this line, but we're not going to go over it. Mm-hmm. So that's going to look different for every single Christian that's out there, but I would say let's just talk about where we might want to draw those lines because, all right, you shop. these are like the main, everyone knows companies, but you shop at Walmart or
Target.
Target, or you go get coffee at Starbucks,
Right.
you go to these companies that are super well known. In fact, you pay your taxes to a government that does a lot of things that aren't necessarily aligned with your values, yet you
Right.
keep on paying your taxes.
Right, yeah.
You might take public transportation where that company is not supportive of your Judeo-Christian, my Christian values, but yet I still hop on the bus. So where do we draw the line in the sand of saying, I'm going to go to this to be in society, but not take that next step to start to be of the world? So
Yeah.
how do I be in the world without being of the world,
Yeah.
still function?
Yeah.
Especially as the world's getting darker, more and
Right.
more companies we're going to run into. How can Christians live in this society that's predominantly run by secular companies?
Right. Yeah.
So,
You go
thoughts?
first this time.
Oh, I get to go first.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
What are your thoughts
So-
on this?
So this kind of came up, I don't know, 3 years ago. The Starbucks CEO came out. I don't know if you heard about this, but if you guys don't know, the Starbucks CEO came out really ultra affirming of LGBTQ rights. And, if I'm being really honest, some people might not like that I'm saying this, but he has every right in this nation to do that. Right? If he's the head of that company and the company has given him the right, he has every right to come out and say this company is going to affirm LGBTQ rights. And then for Christians, we get offended because that's against the morality of God.
Yeah.
But 2 Corinthians tells us something very different. Actually, I'll just read that. I'm right in Corinthians anyways. So this is 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14. And it says, the natural person does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are folly to him, and he's not able to understand them because they are spiritually discerned. The spiritual person judges all things, but is himself to be judged by no one. For who has understood the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. So that section in Corinthians is telling us clearly, a non-believer who doesn't have the Spirit of God, not only can they not understand in truth what this Bible teaches, but they can't understand the things that are only spiritually discerned.
Right.
They might know the morality of God's law, but it's folly to them.
Right.
So we have to say, in our country that we live in, especially Christians, we love to talk about freedoms. Hey, we're gonna fight for our freedoms. We're gonna promote our freedoms. Well, you can't have my freedoms that I want, but not your freedoms that you want. If we're gonna fight for freedoms, and we're not talking biblical freedoms, we're talking state and national freedoms. So do you really want to fight for freedoms in a state and national level? If you do, then you kind of have to not be hypocritical and fight for both side freedoms. So are we as Christians fighting for the morality of God, or are we fighting for state and national rights? That's what we have to determine really on a personal level. There's a blending that goes on there of saying somehow we've morphed our state and national rights into our biblical morality and God-given rights, and that's dangerous. It's dangerous to try to blend those two together.
Yeah.
Because we can get really hypocritical and say like, hey, I want religious freedom, but this country, if it's founded on freedom and freedom of speech, then that guy has every right to come out from Starbucks and say, we're going to support LGBTQ communities.
Yeah.
Now, the flip side of that is we as Christians have every right to say, I'm not going to support with my money that business.
Right.
So, and that's a touchy line. And so I'm using Starbucks as an example because not only do they actively support something that I would say is against my morality, and I would still, we can chat a little bit more in depth about what that would look like, but the CEO of the company came out and said they're affirming and supporting and giving money, which is a pass-through of your money, if you're supporting that company. But also they came out and said, he made a statement that said, if you are a heterosexual individual that supports heterosexual marriage over top of homosexual marriage, then I don't want your business here. So not only is he coming out affirming that they're going to donate to something that I would deem against my morality, but they're saying on top of that, he just completely called out that community and said, if you're affirming that side, we don't want your business here. So it's very clear cut for me to say, well, then I'm not going to give you my business.
Yeah.
Which, again, is if we're talking about rights, I have a right to shop where I want to shop.
Yeah.
It's a right by the state and national government that gave me that right. So
yeah,
it's so many moving parts
Yeah.
of how do we as Christians in a real biblical sense handle living in this world.
Right. Also, like, if you're supporting, you can pick and choose, like, where you want to put your money or what companies you buy things from. But I feel like like you were saying, there's a line because everyone sins, or everyone has something that they're like sinning against God with. So if you're
Find me a company that's
yeah,
like pure in every
right.
way, shape, and form. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not so, maybe like a really select handful of like solid Christian companies,
yeah,
but not many.
yeah. And you can't just like totally isolate yourself from
Yeah.
everyone
No,
and
I'm going to
everything.
stop
And
driving because I can't get gas anywhere
yeah,
because there's not a Christian gas station.
yeah,
That's the level it can go to.
yeah. And no, I love that First Corinthians verse, and like it says that they can't understand the things that are discerned by the Spirit because they're foolishness to him. And within that point, Disney is just going to go with whatever, or like all these companies are just going to go with whatever the sin or whatever the thing is like going in within the culture.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter what it is. If it was another sin, like if I heard somebody else mention this, but if it was like bestiality or like something like that, if the culture is like applauding this thing, then that company is gonna like be for it and pushing it. So it really doesn't matter, like, I mean, I think to a certain extent what it is, or what it isn't. It's like they're just gonna support whatever it is. That's the hot thing of the day.
Yeah.
And
They want
so
to fit in with
right,
society,
and we shouldn't
norms,
be
and the
shouldn't be
culture. Yeah.
surprised by that at all. Because
Yeah.
I mean, let's see, the verse in Ephesians 2, it says, okay, so within that point, there's that verse in Ephesians 2:2, which or Ephesians chapter 2. I'll just start at the beginning. It says, "And you were dead in the trespasses and sins in which you once walked, following the course of this world, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind." If we're not in God, we're under that spirit, which is Satan. We're under the influence and dominion of Satan. And so also we can't be like shocked that, because if they're not in God, they're under the influence of Satan. So they're going to be following him. And, Satan just wants to use these people to be pawns, to like carry out his plot and whatever.
Yeah. And we forget that God is allowing them to live that way.
Yeah.
In allowing doesn't mean that he's approving or that he wants them to live that way, but when you were just reading that verse in Ephesians, it made me think of Romans 1.
Yeah.
Like, so many people know that verse, but it says, "So, claiming to be wise, they became fools, and they exchanged the glory of an immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things." And if you fast forward in Romans a little, it says, "Since they didn't see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up." So this is God literally just handing them over. Mm-hmm. And what does it say? This massive list. "To a debased mind, to do not what ought not to be done. They're filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They're full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. They're gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithful, heartless, ruthless. Those that they know God's righteous decree, and those who practice such things deserve to die. They not only do them, but they give approval to those that do them." So the list, like you read out of breath, trying to do the list of what God says they're going to act like. So we shouldn't be shocked if they're not following the Lord that they act like this.
Yeah.
That's just the natural state of the fallen man.
Yeah.
Who's apart from Christ. If their spirit hasn't come alive in Christ, they're going to act like this list that we see in Romans.
Right.
Okay, so then we just give in. Whatever, we're going to accept it and move on with it. To me, even in my spirit, I think there's some kind of line.
Mm-hmm.
Like when the CEO of Starbucks comes out and says we're supporting, but then I'm questioning. When he comes out with a bold blanket statement, "We don't want your business," then I would say, okay, that's my line. That's my line of, okay, well, I'm not going to shop there anymore.
Yeah.
That seemed cut and dry to me. Mm-hmm. That might not be cut and dry to you or to people watching. That's your own decision to make. But to me, there was some kind of hard stop line of where I thought, okay, I need to rethink about this.
Yeah.
Should I continue to shop at this company that's so boldly and flagrantly trying to destroy the morality of God's law? Mm-hmm. Tough balance.
Yeah.
Many companies are doing it behind the scenes too.
Right.
So is it only out in your face that we handle it? Is it? Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah. It is tough, and I think it has to be a thing of discernment and case by case, really. Yeah, if we were to totally just cut everyone off, I mean, Jesus ate with tax collectors and sinners, and, so we can't totally just, I don't know.
There's a balance of saying, how do we be in the world, but not part of the world? And
right.
I kind of like in my mind, I read verses that talk about being in the world. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh?
Is your laptop calling you?
No. Dave Jenkins is FaceTiming me.
I'll say hi.
Hey, Dave. Sorry.
It's okay. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're back. After that quick commercial break.
From none of our sponsors that we do not have.
Phone call that came in on the computer. So, Romans 12 now, says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by the testing you might discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. So, I think that's cool. By testing, you can discern what is the will of God. So testing is testing based on what the Word of God teaches, based on what the Spirit is telling me to do, and based on how that interaction is influenced those around me. Because Paul says very clear in Corinthians, don't cause your brother or sister to stumble in something.
Yeah.
And stumble is not just, I don't like it. Stumble is you're causing them to sin. So this is, do you like fish?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I hate fish.
I know.
But I know you. So, but when you pull an ocean fish out of the ocean and you eat it,
Yeah.
it doesn't taste like salt. But it's living in salt. But it doesn't taste like salt. It's kind of like what a Christian is. So we're literally living in the thick of sin. But when we're squeezed or when we're, when push comes to shove, what's really inside? Are we tested? Is that spiritual testing going to produce godliness?
Yeah.
So we need to be like ocean fish that aren't salty.
Yeah.
You're in it all day long. You're steeped in it, but it's not affecting what's inside.
Right.
So I think the balance there is saying, what is this company doing outwardly? Is me supporting this company destroying my witness?
Yeah.
Is it gonna in a flagrant manner?
Right. Is it going to cause somebody else to stumble, or is it going to hurt your witness for the cause of Christ? Or
Yeah. And I think Disney takes it to the next step, because do you watch Disney ever currently?
I used to.
So used to when you were a child?
Kid, teenager.
Kid.
I was all about some Disney Channel, let me tell you.
Okay, kid, teenager, right? So kids, teenagers, highly influential. That's what this bill is really about, is saying we're not going to tell our really young kids, like, what is third grade? Third grade and under is really, really young. So we're saying we're not going to influence them at such a young age with something that we're taking away kind of the innocence of what a child is. To start having these discussions at such a young age, regardless of your opinion of whether or not this is even an acceptable moral thing. The Bible teaches the opposite. But regardless of your opinion, we should try to be protecting kids.
Yeah.
Disney is geared for content for kids.
Yeah.
And really they should have the same mindset, this protection of innocence and youth. And really, if you look at what Walt Disney did in the creation of Disneyland and all this Disney content, he was trying to just like let kids be kids, and let kids have a youth.
Yeah.
And now, unfortunately, even the executives have come out. So we see this, but this is not the first thing that's happened that's a red flag against Disney. There's an executive that came out and made a statement, that very vocal statement, that she had a complete and utter queer agenda. That's what she says in her video. She says, I have a queer agenda, and I will try to insert queerness wherever possible into Disney content.
I heard that too, yeah.
And then they had all the executives got together and had this thing called Reimagining Tomorrow, where they said over the next 5 years, they're going to have more than 50% of characters in Disney shows are going to be some on the LGBTQ spectrum. So it's not just a minor thing anymore. It's a hard hammering. We're going to drive this content into young kids' minds.
Turns out there is a gay agenda.
It turns out there is a gay agenda. And the executive said, I have a gay agenda.
Yeah.
I mean, just word for word, she said, I have a gay agenda.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if, I don't know if you've seen the pictures, but even like the stuff that they're selling at Disney World, at Disneyland, it's like LGBT flags and pins and, Disney merch that has like LGBT stuff on it. And so it's like very wide. It's like they're not trying to be
quiet. It's not hidden. It's slapping your face.
Yeah, it's like literally right in front of our faces.
Yep.
And
I know, I just heard too, Disney is pushing into 10 countries like Egypt and Turkey, Lebanon, Kuwait, Bahrain, all who have active anti-homosexual laws. So you can be arrested or worse for acting out in a homosexual way in
Yeah.
these countries. So to me, it shows kind of they're going to push this agenda over even human protection.
Yeah.
Because to push this into those countries is to ask for violence against these people who might affirm and watch.
Yeah.
Now violence is going to come against them. So that's troubling to me too on that
Yeah.
front. Even outside of the morality, that heavy duty pushing of this agenda when you should be pushing innocent content is troubling. A company like Disney shouldn't have a background agenda other than to promote the well-being of children and allow them to be kids.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's like turning to be quite the opposite of that.
Yeah. Do we, as Christians, here's the definitive statement, should we, as Christians, support a company like Disney? That's the question that got brought to our attention. Should we support Disney? And so I would say, I would not come out and tell you, Jonathan, or anyone watching, don't support Disney. But I would say, look at the facts, and then let your spirit tell you whether or not you should support Disney.
Yeah.
So, and really, what are the facts that are right there in our face, and not more grasping at straws? Like, what are the straightforward facts about this situation? And that's, Disney has come out full blast with the gay agenda. They're not hiding it. Their executives are talking about it. There's videos on the internet about it. They're pushing this into additional countries where there could be harm to those individuals for watching this content. They're affirming vast quantities of LGBTQ content over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And if you believe in the Bible and what it teaches and the morality of the Bible, you're destroying the identity of young individuals, young children with this agenda. And you're probably not sitting down watching, if you're on Disney Plus, you're probably not sitting down watching all this content with your children, giving them an apologetic approach to every single one of these videos. Yeah. If you are, that's up to you and your family situation. Yeah. But most likely your kids are going to be watching this content apart from you and having a mild brainwashing done. Yeah. If I had to be blunt about it.
Yeah. It's also like the majority of entertainment these days, it's hard to really find anything. And I can't imagine being a parent right now and not having many things to be able to put in front of your kids or
like good wholesome content.
Yeah. Because even like some of the stuff that might be less like inappropriate, sometimes it can still be like subtle things here or there that it's like over time you don't even realize that you're being desensitized to these things, and then it just happens. Yeah.
And that's all sin.
Right.
Desensitization to sin is just a thing that you have to be careful, I have to be careful, the parents, guys, we have to be so incredibly careful in the raising of our kids that we don't desensitize them to sin. Yeah. The Bible says it's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Yeah. And sometimes we can just take that flippantly, like, yeah, whatever. But we should hate sin as much as God does. Yeah. And desensitization to sin is not something to joke around about. Yeah. So
also the damage that can cause to that generation now that's being raised up. You know.
I agree.
I think ultimately, like, we'll come back to truth as a country, and we see this throughout history, time and time again. We wander away, we come back, we wander away, we come back. I think it's just a matter of time before we come back, but it still like doesn't negate the damage that's caused, or
in that interim of like flagrant sin.
Yeah.
All sin has consequences.
That's true. Yeah.
What would you say? I know. So we're kind of like pull that point together, but this tiny little side point. So this is 3rd grade and under, the Florida law. So if we just talk about that for a second. Yeah. What would you say? Like, okay, there is this. I've heard this thing like, okay, we'll talk about the Virgin Mary. Yeah. I've heard that over and over. Right. But you can't go talk to our kids. So what would you say? Does the school have any authority or response as far as sexuality goes? Should they be talking to our kids, or is that a parent's job? And also, I know this is like a bold statement to make, but at what age do you think it's appropriate to start talking to kids about this? Because Christian parents, for some reason, they'll go through their entire life and let their kids find out about sex and sexuality from every other source, but in the home they'll never talk about it. So what if you might not know, but what do you think is like an appropriate average age range for a parent to start having these discussions? What would you say? No?
I don't know. I'm not a parent.
You were a kid.
Why are you asking me this?
You were a kid.
That's true. It was different for me. Like, we talked about biologically things that happened I remember in elementary school, like fairly young, just from like a scientific, the body and all that, and differences in genders and things like that, as far as like actual sex and things like that. We didn't really talk about that, but you go to school and you hear all about it.
You learn at school real quick.
You learn real quick, yeah. So that was kind of like my experience, but I don't know about you.
Similar.
But, yeah.
I remember on the bus in 4th grade hearing stuff that I had no idea what it was, and I was like sitting there trying to fit in, if you will, like pretend like I knew what they were talking about.
You just like,
but I had no idea. Yeah, exactly.
I have no idea what this means. Like, I'm just gonna say it.
I literally have no idea what these people are talking about, and I realized at that point, and I went from being homeschooled to going to public school.
Yeah.
So I think if I had been homeschooled long enough, my parents probably would have approached me at some point. But I quickly found out at school, and I would say, that's not a healthy way to find out about sex or sexuality. So I think parents should be more... It can be an awkward topic with your kids.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
But we should be more active about saying, it's not a sinful or shameful thing when sex is in the appropriate setting in marriage.
Yeah.
But we kind of act like it's a shameful or sinful thing in our homes.
Yeah.
And it's like a hidden, like, we're not going to talk about it thing, which only breeds
shame more.
Shame and issues with sexuality.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It should be more of an open discussion of how God has ordained this. Kind of like that fire. Fire's great in the fireplace. Put it in your home and it burns the house down.
Yeah, because God did create it, and so we shouldn't shy away from talking about it, but just in the right context and the right time.
Yeah, and parents.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so the issue here is the school is trying to take on the parent's job because the parent's not doing it.
Yeah.
If I had to guess.
Yeah.
If a parent took a more active role in the raising of their children in all regards, apologetics, sexuality, standard morality, then we wouldn't have to even worry about the school stepping in and talking to our kids about this stuff because the parent would be doing it.
Yeah.
So kind of going down that road.
Yeah. But I get, where those people are coming from and wanting to protect their children because, teachers, like for me, I'd be like, a teacher just needs to do their job and teach and not try to push whatever their personal, it's like Disney trying to push their personal or like queer agenda onto little kids, and like they're just there to like learn and
But this is probably it's opening up a can of worms for a different topic, but I would say the reason that it would be a prison offense for somebody over the age of 18 to have sex with a minor, the exact thing that would be brought up in a court of law is that you would say they don't have the cognitive capacity to make a decision about that sexual encounter.
Yeah.
But we're saying they have the cognitive capacity at a 3rd grade level to make a decision about their sexual identity.
Yeah.
And that seems problematic to me. That seems like a loose cannon that's going to go down the road of freeing up what should be considered a prisonable offense.
Right.
Saying, well, if they have that cognitive capacity in the 3rd grade, then who's to say they can't have sexual encounters?
Yeah.
That's scary to me.
Yeah.
Very scary.
Yeah. And that opens up a can of worms because it's just more and more, and it's like,
when does that end?
Yeah. When does it end?
Yeah. I
and
think
clearly,
we need to let kids be kids, but teach them.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And if we look back over the last 50 years, it's like, it doesn't end. Clearly, we see that. At some point, we need to turn the ship around and be like, no, like, enough is enough.
Yeah. Kids should be taught and trained, especially from a Christian perspective, morality and apologetics of that morality. So you're not just loosing them into the world and letting them wander.
Yeah.
So, huge parent job. So. Yeah,
parents, we'll pray for you.
Yeah.
Let's pray right now.
It makes me think. I have 6 kids, and I don't know. I need to do a better job myself, even just sitting here thinking about that.
Yeah.
Like, how often do I spend teaching my kids about these things they're going to face in the world?
Yeah.
So. Well, my coffee's gone. So
yeah.
Time to wrap up.
Yeah. Any other... I don't know. I feel like this is like... It's messy, okay?
I would say... Okay, we started off by asking, what's our approach?
Yeah.
This is one of those gray areas in the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay. Be in the world, but not of the world. So every single Christian needs to come up with their own personal approach to this.
Yeah.
But you can't shy away from the facts of those situations too. There's some times where you're going to be in the world and you're also going to be combating the morality of what that person is trying to push, that agenda they're trying to push. So,
Yeah.
and if you do that by literally just not supporting them, so they don't have the finances to go and push that agenda, then that's an approach Christians can take. So
Yeah.
that might be my approach, that might be yours, or people watching, or you might say, I'm just going to teach my kids an apologetic nature to these things and continue to support this company because there's not much content out there. Those are really in-house decisions for your family. What's best for your family? Are you honoring the Lord in that decision?
Right.
And are you teaching and training at all times about the morality of God?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I mean, part of me is like, do we even really, as a Christian community, if we were say like we're all going to do this, like, do we even really have a chance of like actually putting a dent in a company's, revenue or whatever by banding together? Like, what is the actual reality of that happening? I think at the end of the day, it's like what you're saying, just a personal wisdom and discernment, but then also of like what we are saying of being in the world, not of it, being the salt and light in the world. And if we're actively doing that, and we have to believe that God's going to honor that and continue to grow his kingdom. And, it's not going to be of just one action or boycotting somebody or some company.
Yeah.
It's like actually getting out there and doing the work and sharing the gospel. Mm-hmm. And that's how we're really going to see change.
I agree.
So,
I mean, and again, Romans is a rich book for this kind of, information. Paul says, he's using vegetables and meat with this, but it translates over to anything.
Yeah.
He's like, if you only eat vegetables and I feel comfortable eating meat, I shouldn't condemn you and you shouldn't condemn me. So we shouldn't be walking around and seeing a Christian who still subscribes to Disney Plus and condemning them for that.
Yeah.
That's a decision they make personally between them and the Lord.
Yeah.
So we should spend time thinking and praying about it, but also not condemn the one who has gone one way or the other.
Yeah.
The Bible doesn't say thou shalt not subscribe to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So I think we have to be very cautious in making a blanket Christian statement about what we should or shouldn't do here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks again for tuning in today. If you guys have any other final thoughts or comments, opinions, let us know, as always, down below. And make sure to hit that good old subscribe button and the bell as well, so you're always notified when we upload new videos. And upload new videos. It's like pig Latin.
Upload new videos.
Yeah. All right.
And if you guys have any feedback about what we talked about today, we might not have covered from every angle. So shoot some comments. We'll try to hit them on the next episode. So thanks.
Sounds good. See you on the next one.
See ya.
Bye.